Well, welcome everybody. I anticipate we're kind of catching people at the end of their school days here today, so we'll have some people probably trickle in here as we get rolling. But we'll go ahead and get started here with those of you in the room. My name's Blake Vandebunny. I'm the Director of School Success, working with the state of New York, and I will let my other New York colleagues introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christy Cobb. I'm a Director of New District Engagement for the Northeast region, which means I get the pleasure to work with the state of New York. I'll hand it over to our other colleague.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lily Ornelas, and I am a Director of Strategic Accounts, and I work with just the City of New York, so New York City Public Schools.
So today we have a chance to really highlight PLTW. We've done that welcome and introduction, but we really want to provide this opportunity to really showcase not only PLTW, but show you how we are an incredible solution to helping you meet those standards alignments specifically for the state of New York. And also wanted to provide you with a chance to just hear from a long-time implementation from Hendrick Hudson School District. So we have Thomas here with us, who is more than happy to share about the work that they've done within the district. Hey, Thomas, and specifically the work that he has done over the years as he's had a chance to instruct on PLTW. And so there will be some time at the end you see there for Q&A. So if you have any questions or anything like that, Thomas can take some of those on for us, as well as we have some fantastic members of our implementation team, Andy and Paul, who are here to really be able to spotlight and really get into those nitty-gritties around best practices, around implementations, and ways in which you can see PLTW really flourish inside of your schools or districts. So we're going to go ahead. We'll get it started off with that big introduction. And Blake will kind of lead that to us before we get into more of those nitty-gritty pieces where we're thinking about standard alignment and all those great things. So right over to you, Blake.
Sure. Thanks, Christy. Throughout, one of the benefits I think of being here in person is as you have questions today, drop those in the chat. We're going to monitor that throughout. If it's a timely question we can address right in that moment, we're just going to go ahead and do that. If not, we'll save it for the end for that Q&A that Christy talked about. So kind of the high level overview here before we have Andy and Paul kind of zoom in for us a little bit more is this kind of balcony view here of PLTW. Whether you're familiar with our programs or not, we hope to kind of give you the lay of the land here a little bit. So our programs are listed here on the bottom. Launch is our elementary program, Gateway, our middle school program. We have 3 different options for high school: computer science, engineering, and biomedical. And then new right now is the Algebra 1 Advantage. So that can obviously work at the middle school or high school level. And then as we have some schools interested in setting up pathways or learning more about doing that, you can kind of see our curriculum laid out that way instead. So you'll see Launch here over on the left, moving to the Gateway in the middle school years. And take note there too. Screenshot this and we'll share it out later with you afterwards, but just kind of the nature of how these are set up. You'll see that Launch is set up in 42 modules, modules going 12 to 14 hours each, which allows flexibilities at that elementary school level to pace it out in a way that makes sense for how you do those programs in your building. Gateway, the middle school program, broken up into 10 units, going a little bit longer, feels a little bit more like what we would define as like a traditional class period. And then moving on over to our high school programs over here on the right-hand side. These are year-long courses, with engineering being the longest course. The nice part about Launch and Gateway is that throughout those modules and units, students are able to pick up skills and knowledge that will help them as they move towards computer science, engineering, and biomedical. So it gives you some pretty unique opportunities to create some really fun pipelines starting at the kindergarten level or pre-K level all the way up through high school.
And so Blake has given us that bird's eye view looking into the various different programs that we have, noting that we do have those pathways that are starting right in that high school space, and they're moving down computer science, engineering, and biomedical science into that Gateway and Launch programs. But the exciting thing for us, especially for the state of New York, are that many of our computer science courses and modules all connect to national standards, as well as we have those full connection and standards to the New York Computer Science and Digital Fluency standards. So we really are happy, and we are truly also proud that the curriculum that we have is able to truly support the work that you all are doing inside of your classrooms each and every day. We'll link those specific New York Computer Science and Digital Fluency standards to this follow-up, as well as you can locate those on our site, and you'll see in your follow-up resources how to quickly navigate there, so you don't have to search too much or do too many clicks for that as well. But we also have some really incredible people on the call today, which are our directors of implementation for both elementary and middle school here. And they will be able to give us just a little bit more of a deeper dive into those connections and those best practices of how we're making that happen and how you can make that happen inside of your school and your districts. So I will turn it over to the two wonderful people that you see there on the screen. I'll let them introduce themselves and take it from here. Don't be shy.
All right, so Andy and I, we always do a duel on the headshots to figure out who's going to go first. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Christy. My name is Paul Shea. I'm a director of implementations focusing on our elementary program, which is PLTW Launch, like Blake had mentioned. I'm a former launch classroom teacher, and really now in my role, I work with account owners like Christy, Blake, and Lily to really help support schools in thinking through developing sustainable and successful implementation plans, not only for year one, but looking at a multi-year plan. We really want to make sure to support you and be a great STEM ally and thought partner in your school's vision. With that, I'll turn it over to Andy.
Yeah, great to be with you folks. I work closely with Paul and with the others on the call, just supporting schools. We love diving deep into the weeds and really addressing, like Paul said, that 3 to 5 year vision that you have, and really building a sustainable plan that addresses staffing, scheduling, budgets, all of those things that come up. We can really help in a lot of ways. So we're excited to talk a little bit more about how the curriculum's structured, and then a little closer look at Gateway here. So Paul, do you want to share a little bit about our APB approach?
All right, thank you, Andy. Now, we all have heard and seen the research over the past couple of years that hands-on engaged learning has so many benefits for students. And Project Louis is uniquely kind of positioned and designed in a way to really support those benefits that have come out of research. So in all of our offerings, whether it's launched with our modules, Gate with our units, or our high school courses, they're all designed around what we call our activity, project, and problem-based learning approach. More commonly, you'll hear it called APB. So within each of the different programs, activities are utilized to develop knowledge and skills. So they're going to start off a little bit more well-defined, but it's going to quickly become very hands-on and engaging, and it's going to move towards the open-ended. But again, so the activities focusing on developing the knowledge and skills. Then there will be a project or multiple projects based off of the individual program you're implementing. And the focus of the projects is really on making meaning, creating connections to what skills have been developed and the knowledge that's been developed in the activities, before then ultimately applying and transferring all that knowledge and skills development that took place, the meaning making and the connections with the guided inquiry process or the investigations in the project, to an open-ended real-world problem. And I think one of the most powerful parts about the APB instructional approach is that everything is intentionally designed and scaffolded in a way so the development of that knowledge and skills and the meaning making is then applied to the real world problem. There's no fluff in any of our programs. It really is about developing the knowledge and skills and making those connections to solve a real world problem. And I'll transition it over to Andy, talk about our Gateway offerings.
Absolutely. So thanks, Paul. So how this relates, when we get to the middle school units, there are 10 different units that follow, as Paul mentioned, this APB approach, starting with well-defined activities and moving to very open-ended real-world problems. Each of these are structured in that same format, but obviously around different content areas and different topics of focus. So you can kind of get a sense here just based on titles, as well as those smaller colorful icons as far as which pre-K through 12 pathway and engineering in that teal color, but 10 different units. These are each designed around about 45 hours of instruction, but there's lots of flexibility in how that can fit into your schedules. Paul and I always jokingly but seriously say that's why we have jobs, helping you think through where does this fit, who can get trained, what makes sense from where to get started, and those types of things. Specifically on the computer science side, you see those 3 units in computer science for innovators and makers, automation and robotics, and then app creators. Those are our 3 kind of primary computer science focused units. Lots of great experiences. Quick example of one, computer science for innovators and makers will use the microbit. So a device here that's an LED grid. And so it starts with the very basics of programming, drag and drop programming, and they get some of these LEDs to light up. You see an arrow here that's on the microbit right now, but maybe they design a scrolling sign for like a restaurant. As they progress in their programming skills and understanding of computational thinking, they start attaching inputs and outputs to the bottom here, and apply what they've learned throughout the beginning activities. And then maybe they're designing as a cat walks up to a feeder, it dispenses a treat for the cat or something like that. And then they can take it even above and beyond as they move to open-ended real-world problems, where we've seen schools tackle a variety of different challenges. One example I saw was a school designed some of the costumes for their theater department using what they learned in Innovators and Makers, but some very open-ended opportunities for students to really take what they've learned and take it to the next level. So 3 great experiences. Innovators and Makers is a good starting point. Many schools offer either automation robotics next in that progression, which is a great blend of engineering and computer science, and then finish with app creators. Some may flip-flop that app creators with automation and robotics, but lots of flexibility. We would love to work with you at any point to identify what you're trying to achieve and see how this could fit. On the next slide, Paul, as we kind of progress and continue, just some evidence-based, evidence paper here talking about creating career confidence. This is truly alive and well at the middle school level, helping students see how their strengths and interests could be well aligned to a pathway of their interest. It truly allows students to really be the center of that learning experience, getting to solve problems, work collaboratively, and develop some of that grit and perseverance that you're trying to establish with your students. So an evidence paper coming your way. As Blake mentioned, we'll be sharing a number of follow-up resources at the conclusion here. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Blake to introduce our program spotlight.
Great. Andy, Paul, thank you so much. As Christy mentioned at the outset, we're lucky to have Tom Confrey with us today. Tom's been working with Hendrick Hudson School District in Westchester County in their PLTW program for years. And we're lucky to have him here today with us to just kind of share a little bit of their story, how they got started with PLTW, and how they've gone from kind of just starting with a single high school program and expanding that out to 3 high school programs and now kind of a middle school feeder with the Gateway program. Tom, if you wouldn't mind maybe just kind of starting off for us, introducing yourself a little bit and any of the big bullet point items on the Hendrick Hudson story with the PLTW work.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. I'm Tom Comfrey. I'm officially a science teacher, but I teach Project Lead the Way, Introduction to Engineering, and I have for many, many years. So our school has been part of the Project Lead the Way program for a long time. We started just with engineering and then folded in biomed, and now we have computer science as well. And then we added the Gateway at the middle school. And it's nice, it all kind of works together. We have partners. We actually have a partnership meeting coming up on Thursday. So we have people from the outside come in and talk to our students about their careers and things they learned, in college and all sorts of things. So in terms of the middle school piece, I know we just cut off from, we just talked about the middle school. Having the middle school is a huge help for us in 2 ways. One, it's a huge help because students learn kind of the practice and the methods, and they see lessons in this style, and that's a huge help. We have like a technology block that kind of floats through 6, 7, and 8. So that's a huge help for us. And the second part is in promoting our high school classes. So a lot of the middle school teachers do a great job of just saying, hey, if you're into this, hey, we have this at the high school, or hey, you seem to be good at this. Would you want to check out this at the high school? And so that's a great kind of back and forth that we have. with the middle school, which has helped us just like grow the program and keep, you know, kids interested and kids going forward. So those two things are huge for us, just like that expertise, and then obviously in the enrollment engagement. So in terms of the 3 pathways, the biomed is often self-sustaining. There's a big core of students that love the biomed program. The engineering and comp sci, what we've found is that one of the best things is like we kind of promote them together. So we have some kids maybe start in engineering. Hey, we have this comp sci pathway. We have some kids starting comp sci. Hey, we also have engineering. So that's been a big help for us, is just promoting the idea of like trying different pathways, maybe not being locked into one. That's really helped us in terms of like enrollment and having kids engaged. Like, you know, maybe comp sci wasn't your favorite, but we have this design program. We also have biomed. So we've really tried to push that idea of like trying different things. And I do think the comp sci and engineering courses go really well together. So in the principles of engineering, there's a lot of coding, there's some VEX stuff. And then students who like that or into that often get pointed to the comp sci principles, AP comp sci, all those things. So that really helps us to like all us working together. And now going forward, we'll all be like in the same wing. It's going to be like a Project the Way kind of design space with 2 rooms. So that's just a huge help too, to just like say, you know, hey, what's going on over there? Or kind of easily move back and forth. So that's a big deal too. We're in the basement, but it's room 9 and room 10. And being able to kind of push back and forth and kind of share stuff is awesome as well. Also helps with, you know, with cost too, just having the resources in one spot. And the things that we've learned, I mean, we learned that students really like these courses. They like this learning. And we've learned that, you know, the programs can grow. We do have some headwinds. I'm sure that a lot of schools do, that overall, like New York State, like declining enrollment and things like that. So we have to kind of keep promoting the courses. But we've learned that, like I said, the middle school is a huge help, and just, you know, just keeping them going. So another nice thing that we've also learned is that our alumni really value the programs. So we've had a big reach out to alumni to come back and talk to, you know, current students and say, hey, this helped me, or I like this, or the stuff I did in college was kind of like that. And that's been a big help for us too, to keep engagement and keep connections to people who have graduated. So that's probably about it for me, unless they have specific questions. But
Tom, do you mind if I quickly put you on the spot?
no problem. I'll ask Aaron any question.
I would love, just this is selfish, I'd love to hear one of those alumni stories. Like if you've brought a former student back who kind of went through the program, even if it was just a class, like something they came back and either told you one-on-one or spoke to your students about, like what are you hearing from your alumni when they come back?
So we have had a number of, you know, like biomed as well as comp sci and engineering. I will say that one of our best engineering students, you know, went on to be an engineer and went on to like start his own company. And what he came back with was just the idea that like the teamwork, like that piece, and just how, you know, he was, I mean, a great student, very intelligent, but maybe kind of more struggled in that realm of just like connecting with people, and, you know, working with people may not have the same expertise or level. And so that was a huge thing that he talked about, was like just getting so much practice working in teams. You can learn all the things in all the world with the internet, but you got to be able to relay that information. You got to get other people on board. You got to sell it, you know, to investors and stuff. So that would be like one of those big lessons that I would say you can learn the nuts and bolts of problem solving, you know, in other classes and things. You can learn how to code, you know, from like a tutorial or something like that, but that's not going to make those connections and those other skills that are out there. It's not going to happen without that connection. That was, you know, the team idea.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's great. Is that kind of what you mean too when you're talking about like one of the nice things about having that gateway program ahead of your high school programs is about, you mentioned students understanding the practices and the methods and the styles. Can you speak just a little bit more on those sorts of skills that students are coming with when they're moving from that middle school to the high school program?
Absolutely. So some of it's just really kind of straightforward. You know, we started using Fusion in the high school, so they started using Fusion in the middle school, you know, for the engineering kind of pathway. But a lot more of it is just like the expectations for like the questions. Hey, this is how you write a conclusion. This is how you write a problem statement. This is what we expect. So I would say it's like that level of rigor and that understanding, because, you know, it as you practice something, you get better at showing that knowledge, but it's also what the expectations are, how to show that knowledge. And so I would say it's that. It's like, hey, I've seen a question like this before. I've written a problem statement before. I've looked at constraints before. And so we're at the high school not doing all of that lifting. Students are kind of coming with that, and then we can refine it or build on it. And so that's been a big, big help.
That's so cool to hear, because you're giving them practice and reps at the stuff that's really hard to get practice and reps at. And it's the stuff that traditionally will scare students and they won't want to try it, and just giving them those safe reps at speaking to, I mean, you talked about that too with your partnerships of having folks come in and talk to the, like, they're interacting with professionals in the field while learning it at the same time. Like, that just seems like something that is hard to just organically create. And it sounds like you guys have been really intentional about setting that up.
Yeah, we are very lucky where we're located in New York. There's a lot of industry.
Whoops, sorry, Tom, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
So we've been very lucky. I think it's just like my mouse was on it, but yeah, we're very lucky where we're located. So like IBM is very close by, Regeneron, Indian Point, these people that are willing to reach out. Certainty is a brand new partner for us. They make all like drywall and shingles and everything you've ever bought at Home Depot. So we've just been lucky that, just asking them, hey, would you come talk to students about your experience, about what you learned, about your career path? And it's just great because we can say like, hey, you gotta be lifelong learners. The days of getting one job for 40 years is over. You're gonna need to keep learning. But it kind of, from a teacher standpoint, from teachers like, yeah, okay, whatever, old man. But when professionals come in and say, no, I started, in the office, delivering mail, and then I got another degree, and I became like a floor, person, then floor manager. It really speaks volumes. So we have a good number. This on Thursday, about 7 people are coming for a panel, and then we just have all the kids just write questions. We give out bios for each person, and then the kids write questions about, and you get some like how much money you make. You get some funny questions. We kind of screen those, but there's a lot. The kids are asking deeper questions about, what would you have liked to learn in school, or what helped you the most in your career, or did you always want to do this? Things like that kids want to ask people in the field. So that's really a great experience. We do it twice a year for the high school students.
I think, I ran out of space to write on my piece of paper for what you're saying here, Tom, but like students wanting to ask questions, like students wanting to ask those deep questions, because we know as educators, like when they're wanting to ask those questions and that curiosity is like the real deal, that's where the learning is going to happen. So if I have to rain on the parade a little bit here, Tom, if we shift it to standards for just a second, we know that, hey, we know when good stuff's happening in our classroom and in our building, and down in the basement in room 9 and 10, when it's loud and there's stuff moving all over the place and people are working in groups, we know the learning's happening. Ultimately, we're answering to our state and their standards, and we're making sure that we're getting those boxes checked for our students and for our districts. How has doing this work through with PLTW connected with the standards for you? Has it helped make it an easy lift? What work's been required on your end to make sure that you're getting that work done too?
So I would say, like, when I first joined, that was a challenge. I taught chemistry for many years, and I had that kind of traditional setup, like labs and quiz and tests, and I could like, hey, like with a big stamp, like, hey, you learned this, you didn't learn that. So I think my definition had to change of what kind of learning was and meeting those standards. I'd be like, no, that this student can show this. They're showing me what they have and what they can do. The other thing that I've started to do more on that front, even like now and in the more recent years, is like really changing up groupings and being very intentional with the different levels of students in groups. Because one thing that can happen is you can have a person that's very strong kind of completing like almost an entire assignment with just one or two people kind of just along for the ride. So that's something I've had to do too, is create tasks where maybe the teams are at a similar level, and then there are individual pieces that they work on together. So I can say like, okay, like this student did this work on their own. I can see those skills. All right, they came together and worked on this. I can see that. So those would be the two things. I did have to kind of change how I thought about assessment. And then I had to just be like more intentional with like individual work and teamwork. It can't all be team, because it could look great from like the product, but then, maybe one or two students really didn't do a whole lot, but then you obviously don't want just individual tasks. That's not the idea of this. So just like balancing that is, I guess, best I've done it, but that would say that is the biggest challenge that I had coming from like a traditional classroom setup to this course.
Yeah, I think that's right on the money. I mean, that's cards on the table. I'm pretty new to PLTW, and something that's been so impressive to me is when I've looked through our curriculum, there are often those options for we have individual assessments along with the group work so that you as the teacher can make sure, yeah, I've got my finger on the pulse of where each student is individually, but we're also moving this kind of group practice where we're picking up those other skills and asking those deep questions that we want asked. We're sussing that out too through that group stuff. So I think that's really great. Tom, if you don't mind, we're going to ask you to stick around here for a minute in case we've got any questions here in the back end. But for right now, I'm going to hand it back over to Christy.
Oh my gosh, that was just so amazing, Tom. Just so much. I feel just like Blake, just wealth of knowledge, and just thinking about how the program has grown is just incredible, and the impact and the alumni story. So thank you for truly sharing that. More than anything, right here, I get to be the fun one and just give you the nitty-gritty details, right, of what it really takes to have Project Lead the Way, and the same thing that Thomas has done to get it in. We really break the investment down into 3 categories. The first category is always an annual participation fee. This is truly the access to the curriculum, all of the software, the licensure, the tech support that you're receiving there. Also, we have a teacher community that's built in into that platform where teachers are able to access and really connect with others. You also note that second bucket is the professional development. Every single teacher that teaches Project Lead the Way has gone through our training, which is absolutely phenomenal. Some have noted it to be the real big thing that has kept them within their teaching career. It is a chance for teachers to be able to engage with master teachers in an asynchronous and synchronous environment, or also there's the availability to have it in person. You can learn more about those professional development options as well as in addition to the core training as well there. And then finally, you'll see that the final bucket is equipment and supply. So all those cool pieces that Andy held up, some of the things that you're seeing on your screen, that's also part of that investment, and it's separate from those other 2. PLTW is fortunate to have their own store, so you're able to access the purchase of those equipment and supplies with the support of our team, like Andy and Paul, as well as onboarding support that will help you kind of think through the necessities and connect you with those that continue to support you as well. I'll go on to that next one, I believe. Or that's Lily. Yes. But their support.
Yes,
like, yeah.
we know exactly. We know that bringing PLTW is a big investment, and so we want to make sure that you know about grant opportunities that will make a Project Lead possible. We will always have opportunities listed on our website, often through partners, but we do have a PLTW grant opportunity that's available right now for new launch and new gateway programs. And this grant would help to pay for that participation fee and the professional development that Chrissy talked about. And again, if you wanted more details, you can reach out to one of us as you're thinking about bringing on a program. We will help with grant applications and guide you to where you should apply, best ways to fill that out, and help you through that process as well to make sure that you're building a sustainable program at your school. As we had mentioned as well, we will be following up with a lot of resources, including the recording of this, but you'll receive the Launch Gateway and also the Computer Science Frameworks and Standards connection. So you'll get the New York specific one for Launch, and you'll get the National Standards one for the rest of them. So you'll get the links for those. And if there's anything you need, please feel free to reach out to us. We will provide you with our contact information, and based off where you are, the right person will reach out to you. And this is a good time to launch into questions. So if you have any, if you want to drop them in the chat, it's a small enough group too that if you want to just take yourself off mute and ask the questions, you can fire them away. And I'll leave our slide up with contact information so that if you wanted to take our emails down, you can to reach out to us afterwards. Any questions? Let me see any in the chat.
Lily, I actually just sent you a message with a question in it.
Oh, there we go. All right. Gary writes, if we are running a program and are replacing staff due to retirement, are there any funds available? Does anybody want to take that on?
Can you read it out one more time?
If we are running a program and are replacing staff due to retirement, are there any funds available?
So the way that the grant application works is, so as Lily stated, it covers those two different buckets. It covers that annual participation fee. So depending on whichever program, that might be 950, it might be 3,200, whatever. We see that separately, and that grant can cover that. And then the next thing that it's willing to cover is that core teacher training. And so those core teaching training seats, which are awarded in vouchers, can cover up to 6, sometimes 24, depending on how large your implementation is. And it's like a bank of those vouchers. So say you do have a teacher that is retiring. So Thomas, I'm going to use you, okay? Because you're an actual one here. So say Thomas was leaving, his school was a grant awarded. However, they have 3 remaining grant vouchers in their bank after they've been awarded. They can use those 3 for brand new teachers in order to grab up and train new teachers that are going to come in. Say you decided to start your actual implementation without a grant, and you have those funds already available. What we do have is a training guarantee, and what that training guarantee states is that we will train their replacement, Thomas, if he was to go on. We'll train his replacement if he leaves within 4 years of the start of that implementation. So there's various different ways that we can support that specific situation that you kind of dropped in the chat. And if you want to talk to it more specifically, we're more than happy to do that too. We'll just navigate you to whichever one of us is best for that. Any other questions?
Can I follow up with that first question?
Of course.
Along those lines, we basically, in our 2 or 3 elementary schools, we have 2 STEM professionals. So they basically run all of STEM in those 3 buildings. Those 2 people have retired within the past year, and we're hiring 2 new people. So they don't even have the other people to train them, because in the past it's elementary, so it would be launch. We would have them be trained by our launch people. So that's what I'm really looking at. We have 2 new people in those positions, and we're trying to continue a program that we have people retiring from, so there's no one there to even guide them.
Got you. I might even throw this to Andy or Paul to kind of talk about that training piece, and thinking about, even though the 2 may be retiring, the 2 that still need training, the support that they would receive in that specific instance that you just described. Paul or Andy, either one of you come off mute. It's okay. I know either one can do it.
No, of course. And I apologize. My internet's been really spotty. Did you share how long ago those 2 teachers that are retired were trained?
The first one, I believe, was more than 4 years ago. The second, I do not know offhand.
Okay, that would
I'm
be
actually in charge. I'm in charge of science from 6 through 12 and engineering 6 through 12. These are the elementary people who I'm trying to help them out to get to where they need to be.
That makes total sense. I think that would definitely be a key piece to kind of understand, just to really think through training guarantee. Does that come into play with this based on when they were trained? If not, I mean, I think the best support would be knowing that as you're looking at new teachers potentially to get trained, that's where, as a director of elementary programs, I could certainly meet with the teachers as well as with their directors to really think through, okay, what support is needed, thinking about attending training, looking at, okay, do they need to map out a new plan, knowing that they're going to have new teachers in place, kind of taking on those STEM positions. We can kind of work side by side with them to really support them through that visioning process of what it's going to look like now moving forward. Either way, I would definitely recommend, once, if they do need to attend launch classroom teacher training, the new person, then thinking big picture of attending launch lead teacher training to kind of be able to transitional staff members really start to build that sustainability piece long term, because obviously ultimately we don't want you to be them to be in this position, let's say a couple years down the road again. So making sure that there's enough staff established and trained for the sustainability component.
Are you gonna email all of your contacts as well? Is that possible?
Yeah, you'll receive an email with all the slides as well. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Thomas, again, for just telling us all the wonderful things that are happening at your school. We really appreciate it. And as we said, we'll follow up with all of the resources needed. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions you may have.